I'm Will Hedrick.
And I'm Jordan Schaffer.
And this is Dog Ears and Timestamps, a book club podcast.
Also known as The Witcher Podcast.
Right.
We have so much content that it could be The Witcher Podcast.
Right. Oh my God.
Yeah, just
Having
like...
read 2 books in a chapter in the past 3 or 4 days since I fucking put it off like I always do, except this time I put off 700 pages instead of just 100 pages.
Yeah, you did quite a bit of reading, like hardcore reading that I didn't realize until today.
I really crammed it. At first I was just slow at getting it done. And then as I really realized, I was like, oh fuck, it's coming up way closer than I thought. I really had to fucking cram it in, and I just barely did it.
Yeah, I think I listened to The Last Wish pretty soon after we recorded, 2 weeks ago. But then like the week of Thanksgiving, I just like...
I did like nothing. Well, I was just working.
Yeah, I want to say that like I didn't... it was just so busy at work that like I didn't have the full focus that I would like to give when it's like something this detailed and like, character building, world building, not just into another Earth, a multiverse that I could already know. It's like a brand new universe that's like, okay, I got new everything. And, I needed to give it the full attention. We were talking earlier too. It's like I couldn't listen to it at any faster than normal rate either. Just all the big new names and stuff. I had to take it super slow. And I even after I finished The Last Wish, I was like, all right, time to read the wiki, see if I missed any details. And it was cool. I mean, little details I might have missed kind of came up, and then it made me want to read it again. I am gonna hop back into those first 2 again. It's so interesting. It grabbed me kind of like Game of Thrones did. Like it's especially these first 2 books, which I think were like a fun way to hop in. I didn't get through the Sword of Destiny, but I got through the first chapter of that one, and just them both being kind of a collaboration of short stories. It was a lot of fun. It felt like you didn't really have to know anything about the world to just hop in, and they could throw things at you, like Geralt touched something as he walked by muttering an incantation, and it's like, oh, okay, well now I know he does incantations. Like I just learned that, and you just, since it's so new, you kind of don't really take anything for like, wonder what that means, or like, whereas
you can just accept and move on.
Yeah,
okay, this is a thing that happens, and now we go on to the next thing that happens or whatever.
I was kind of curious, I guess, with the background and like the game and stuff, if you had any moments like that, or if maybe something happened and you're like, no, I know that sorceresses or I know that what did they call them? Sorcerers, just unisex for both.
Yeah, I think they in the same way that we just referred to mankind as just men sometimes.
Yeah,
they will just say sorcerers, but whenever they speak individually, like they might call Yennefer the sorceress. Although once or twice they even say like, Yennefer is a sorcerer or something like that. So it's pretty fluid as far as articles go. Yeah,
I kind of liked that in just the way that they were like, okay, he's or she is a sorcerer. Like they just the sorcerer is the word for someone that uses sorcery. Like, there
doesn't have to be witch,
and it does. And it, when you think about it, sorcerer doesn't seem like it has to be gender specific, because I don't know what about sorcerer makes it male, because it's just sorcery, and you are a sorcerer, right?
Yeah,
is that? I guess
that would be what it would be. Yeah, or a sorceress. Yeah. Which they do use. They say sorcerer or sorceress.
Yeah. I guess it was just the fact that it did happen a couple times, and that I heard sorceress less than sorcerer, so a small detail to focus on. But yeah, I guess just did you have any moments that you're like, sorcerers can't do this, or like, I know that witchers can't flip backwards or whatever, like whatever was going on? Did you know something like from the game that you were thinking like, well, that's kind of odd, like I wonder if okay, now I get why that makes sense in the game?
No, I don't think so.
Nothing yet?
No.
Okay.
I think that everything was pretty in line.
Yeah.
So far as I know and have read and been told, the game developers, certainly the ones that first started the studio, now the studio is a lot larger and more successful, but whenever CD Projekt Red first started, or at least first started doing the Witcher games, they were just like however many, I'm just going to throw a random number out there, although it might be wildly inaccurate. It's just like 15 like super nerds that were all huge fans of these books.
Yeah.
And so they, probably, I would imagine, went through great pains to make it as true to the source material as possible.
Okay.
So there wasn't, so far in what I've read, everything tracks. There wasn't anything that was just like, oh, well, that's not the way that I remember it, or there wasn't anything that didn't add up to me.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that there's something that we'll read that you'll be like, oh, that's why this happened in the game. Like I'm like, maybe he fights a Draco or whatever. Like I don't think that's the word for the offshoot of a dragon, not a dragon, but like the giant lizard.
There's like 6 or 7 different things.
6 or 7 different versions of giant lizard.
And as ambiguous as they are about magic users and their titles, the specific classifications of monsters are exhaustive in this world.
Okay, they're thorough. Yeah, because even in the first books that we went through, we met like a ton of different creatures, and then even in that one story that felt a lot like Beauty and the Beast, like they just said it was a beast, so I imagined literally Beast from Beauty and the Beast,
right?
But I don't know.
But he was a human that was cursed,
right? But so he was a monster though. Like he still
but he didn't have a specific classification. He didn't suddenly become. He wasn't like a werewolf, or he wasn't a gremlin or something like that. He was just a human with a cursed form, and that cursed form didn't ascribed to, or didn't fall under any specific monster classification. He was just a cursed human.
But he was a monster, right? They called him monster.
He was a monster in the same way that you would call, somebody monstrous,
like
or
Ted Bundy's a monster,
or whatever. Okay. But he's not. Where in this universe, monsters are real things,
right?
There are dragons, there are vampires, and there's different subspecies of those, greater species, and those are on the whole referred to as monsters. As opposed to like humans and elves and dwarves. There's also, monsters is just an umbrella for all the dangerous creatures out there that are most often not intellectual. Okay. So they call him a monster in the same way that in conversation you would say, well, that he's a fucking monster or something like that. But he didn't fall under like an actual monster classification.
Well, I guess let's hop into like the book we're on, The Blood of Elves. They even said that line in this book, The Blood of Elves.
Yeah.
I forgot why though. Something about the blood of elves, like magic runs in the blood of elves, something like that. No, that's not right.
Well, maybe not that exactly, but because to varying degrees, much in the same way that in the real world the human genome is pretty muddled these days. Yeah. There is some trace amount of elf blood in a vast majority of humans, just because interbreeding does happen. Right. But specifically, there seems to be a stronger trace of it in Ciri, and that's part of her being a destined child and all this sort of stuff. And so they do reference more than once that she's got like a stronger presence of the blood of the elder and all that sort of stuff. So. Yeah, that's mostly what it's in reference to.
Yeah. Well, Ciri, to hop up to like where we are, she ends up becoming like going through Witcher training after being promised in like one of the earlier books before being born to Geralt to become a Witcher. She ends up through, it seems like Destiny's own decision to kind of get her to be a Witcher. No matter what, it seemed like it was going to happen anyway, but because like she was promised, and then all the stuff went down with like the war and like the her having to flee and
well, that's the main theme of the series overall is destiny and whether people believe in it or not. Okay. I
believe in it. For this book, at least.
Like Geralt always talks about how he doesn't believe in destiny.
Oh no!
But then sometimes he, will say, "Yes, I do believe in destiny," or he's kind of like ridiculously conflicted, where he's pretty wishy-washy in the things that he says, and seems to believe or whatever. But that's sort of like the main theme of the entire overarching story and universe of The Witcher is destiny, and is it real? Or if it, not even necessarily is it real, but what does that matter to people?
Yeah.
Because, if destiny is real, then why does anybody care? It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
If destiny isn't real, then why does anybody care? It's not real. It's a moot argument.
Yeah, and that's got to be why he's so like just doesn't care when he finds out his prophecy is like him covered in blood. He's like, whatever, I've seen that before. Like, I'm always covered in blood. I'm a witcher. Like, that's old news.
I think that's more he's afraid of it. Because he never wants to talk about it. He doesn't want anybody else to, see it whenever they, try to see into him and stuff like that. I think that he's afraid of it because, and as much as destiny is a talking point of the story and the universe, Geralt's main talking point is, am I not human like people say I am? Do I not have feelings like people say I don't? But he does.
He clearly does. Yeah.
He super does, and he's just trying to deny them and accept the monster moniker that's been put onto him by normal humans. And one of those things that exhibits most commonly is that he is afraid of a lot of things. And and that specifically is, whatever his destiny supposedly is, that always gets referred to like in flashes as, the blood and screaming and blah, blah, blah. And you can dismiss that as like, oh, well, I mean, that happens in like every fight he gets in.
Right. Yeah.
He has a very dangerous job, but it's at least the weight that they always put on it and how quickly he shows it off and says, I don't want to talk about it, makes it seem like that's supposed to be like his prophecy of death, and it's supposed to be like horrific or whatever.
Yeah.
And he seems to be very afraid of it, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I could see that, especially, and the cover of this book is like his back covered in slashes and like blood dripping down into his clothes and stuff. Like, he's covered in blood. So like, I don't know if we're gonna see the prophecy that they were talking about in in The Last Wish even, but if we're gonna see that play out, or if in this book, or if we'll see it play out by the end of the series, or I mean, it
is a 7-book series.
Yeah, and I'm curious too if Ciri's obviously a very critical character in this story. I'd like her to be critical for the whole series. It seems I really like her so far. She's fun.
I think
she's
that
cool.
Ciri is meant to be a pivotal part of what comes next for the universe. Because they're always talking about like how everything is changing. The Witchers are all but died out. Society has evolved, and there's technology, around the bend and all this sort of stuff. All the Scoia'tael, which are non-humans, dwarves and gnomes and elves and all that, have been pushed onto like reservations, basically. And
humans don't change.
Yeah.
We just push them to reservations.
And something is happening that's, changing the universe or whatever. And it's sort of given that the people that we follow are on the side that's affecting in a negative way, we're supposed to think along those lines of whatever that change is, it's negative, and Cirilla is evidently the turning point, which will bring things back into some sort of balance, or just wipe the board and let everything start over in a new positive direction. Certainly with the way that things start off and go in the third game, it's a pretty big departure from everything. Or at the very least, like, because like the books happen, right? And then the games sort of take place sort of during some of the events of the books, but mostly after, I think.
I can see that.
The third game is definitely after the books by a pretty long shot.
Okay.
In one of the other, Last Wish, I think it was either The Last Wish or Sword of Destiny, I don't know. At one point, Geralt is talking to Yennefer about the Wild Hunt, and it's just sort of like a throwaway thing. Like Yennefer is like, "Oh, have you heard about this tale or whatever?" And Geralt is like, "I've seen it. It's pretty fucked up," because he's seen everything.
Have I heard of it?
The Wild Hunt is like pretty much the entire story of the third game or whatever,
Oh, okay.
and the Wild Hunt's like after Ciri or something like that. I don't know. I've gotten like 20 hours into that game and I still don't really know what's happening. So
that's one thing too I'm excited for about the series on Netflix that's coming out. Like, I watched the trailer today and I was like, ooh, I know these characters. Like, I'm starting to know people. Like, obviously Geralt would have been easy to pick out, but like I knew him before going. I didn't know his name, but I knew I would have been like, oh, that's the main Witcher. I don't know if there are other ones, but I know he would be the Witcher. And then you see like a young girl in the trailer, and then they say Yennefer, and then she came up and I was like, oh, or they might not say it, but they're like sorceress.
Right.
And then it was like, the lady with red hair, or no, that's Melisandre. Yennefer has black hair, right? Curly black hair.
Mm-hmm.
And
it smells like lilac and gooseberries.
Nice. What's a gooseberry?
I'm not 100% sure.
It's next to your goose flesh. I haven't, so like, I think the translation for this book happened in like 08, 09 or something. And I don't know if because of that, they like avoided any weird little translation crossovers. But in Game of Thrones, he always said like goose flesh. And I haven't heard anything weird like that in this one yet. Nothing weird and like timely that might
right.
not fit.
I think it's probably mostly because the series is written in Polish. And then translated and brought to the States at a decade later.
Yeah, they could very
so
easily
use
avoid
modern terms, because they didn't. Maybe in the Polish version the author was using antiquated terms for the sake of making it feel old, in the same way that Martin does for Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But whenever translating, they're just like, I'm gonna fucking do
that.
I was looking at the casting for the Witcher series on Netflix just to see who it is to play some of these people, and literally the only person that I know is Henry Cavill.
And is he the Witcher?
Yeah, he's
cool.
Geralt. I don't know who any of these other actors are by name. Maybe I would recognize some of their faces, but yeah, none of these actors I know by name besides Henry Cavill.
For some reason, I didn't imagine the Witcher to be like a very handsome person, but I didn't imagine him to be ugly. I just kind of imagined him like gruff,
just
and
to be
rugged,
but sort of grizzled.
Yeah, there you go. Grizzled's a good word. And the actor is pretty handsome. So
Henry Cavill is probably one of the more handsome people in Hollywood right now. He plays Superman.
Oh yeah,
so.
that's why I should have already known.
He's a very standard American-looking person, even though he's British.
And that'll be fun. I wonder what accent he's gonna put on him.
Right.
Yeah,
but I don't know who any of these fucking actors. I mean, that's cool. That's great. That's part of why Game of Thrones was so good. Was there's a bunch of not only nobodies, but mostly nobodies with a couple of stars like Sean Bean and whoever it was that played Tywin. I can't remember his name right now, and I'll kick myself later for it. But
Peter Dinklage was in a few things.
Mm-hmm.
That was his breakout for sure, though, probably. Well, I mean, maybe not his breakout role. I mean, he had already been in stuff.
But that was definitely sort of one of the first times that a lot of people would have seen him and took him super seriously and not just thought of his character in Will Ferrell's Elf.
Right. That's exactly what I thought of. And I've been. I know I already said it, but I've really been enjoying it so far. Just a deep dive into a new world. Like I know we had kind of talked about it, especially kind of. Talking about it like in a not necessarily negative way, but like in a way that like how could we do it for the show? We've been kind of hesitant to go into a long format series like this, but because it's a long format series, it's got so much like it's got years and years and years of of like writing and fandom and lore and I don't know. I'm excited to see where it goes because he didn't write the last book until like 14 years after the 6th book or something. Like I don't know. There are 9 books, so. I guess like he wrote the 8th, technically the 8th book, but I think the 6th in the series. And then after that, he waited like 14 years. I don't know if it was on purpose or not. Who knows? Yeah. But, and then that last one came out. So it's, I mean, I'm excited just to see, cause it obviously, this is a big part of his life. And I feel like it had to have influenced some of the stuff that I've read, like coming up.
It was, I mean, it didn't matter outside of Poland until the first game came out in 2007.
Oh, really? Nobody knew of it?
I'm sure maybe a couple of circles knew about it. Yeah. Maybe, someone, and maybe where you're getting at something that you sort of brought up as an idea before we were recording, maybe somebody like Martin who does nothing but read fantasy novels, had picked up on it, So, certainly once he started writing and got some ability to travel and meet people, someone might have been like, have you read this book series that's Polish by Andrzej whatever Sapkowski. You should check it out. It's pretty close to what you're doing. And so maybe it's to some degree something like that happened. But for the most part, like it was like just like had a cult following in Poland. And then the first game came out in 2007, got pretty popular. People were like, this is a really good game. It's an original idea. It's based on something we've never heard of before.
And that might have been what sparked him to finish the series, because didn't he not write that last one until after that?
I believe so. I'm going to look up the...
I mean, even the book right before that, I think, was early 2000s.
Yeah.
So
looks like... Yeah. If the first game came out in 2007, the last book in the series, which, let me count these right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 8 books in the series, counting Last Wish and Sword of Destiny, the prequels that we read. Season of Storms, the last one came out in 2013, which was 2 years after the second Witcher game came out.
Oh, okay.
The book before that, The Lady of the Lake, came out in 99. So
yeah, good long
8
time.
years before the first game came out. So maybe to some sort of degree, Season of Storms was influenced. Although, looking at the wiki here, Season of Storms is a standalone novel set between short stories and The Last Wish, but containing a few hints on events which follow the original pentalogy. So the series, or the saga, is just those 5 books ending with The Lady of the Lake, which was originally published in 1999.
Okay, so I was thinking so that was just written after the fact to...
Yeah, it was just like he had more stories or another story that he wanted to tell.
That's cool.
It's apparently specifically between a couple of the stories that happen in The Last Wish.
Well, I like that.
So
I like that because the first 2 books that we read were just like a collection of short stories, like we already said. So that almost feels like true to the book's nature, to like start and end with just a series of short stories. And I mean, I assumed that Geralt would live at the end. I don't know why. I just feel like he's cursed to walk the earth and like cure it of demons, or not demons, but be the monster slayer and, and be the Witcher and fix stuff. I feel like that's his curse to walk the... I know it's silly to say it's a curse, because I know he's not technically cursed by anything. I guess I don't know that. He could have been cursed in one of the books.
Well, and the thing that we'll see as we get through the series, not that we're going to read the whole series for the express purpose of this show, but, if I'll, of course, stick with it unless I just get distracted like I do with so many things. I imagine that you'll probably get into it and stick with it.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it a lot.
So as we get through it, we'll see kind of how far it goes. But in the 2 prequels that we read, it's just stories of his adventures with hints at a binding agent that keeps the thread going. But the saga is going to be where like actual world events start happening.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So the impression that you could get from the short stories is just that like he's just this character that, like you said, he's just around. He seems cursed to always be around for whatever reason. But the stories of certainly the games as I've experienced, and what seems to be setting up to happen in the saga of the novels is that there's actual like world events that are happening that he's going to have a part in, and blah blah blah, and that's what it's about, which it wouldn't be overly surprising if he dies at the end of that.
Yeah, and that's why I had to write a book that goes in the middle of the...
Right.
But then the games... like you said, the third game is basically one of the short stories that we had already read, so...
well, it is in reference to it.
In reference to it. Okay.
The Wild Hunt is a...
Right.
And not even just like a thing that is just a story of this universe, but it's in general, like most of the things that are in this universe, they're all based on actual fables and stuff like that we experience in our own life.
I do like that.
I've seen instances of the Wild Hunt in other Norse mythology, or mythologies that are of a Northern European feel, and even in game, there was a Wild Hunt analog story in the Elder Scrolls games. So, it's a thing that is not like wholly original or contained to one single short story in this universe even.
Yeah. So this is, so it's a series of like the 5 books, and this is where like stuff in the world is actually going down. I'm trying to think where we're going to go with this book. Obviously we're going to grow with Ciri as she's dealing with some inner turmoil, whether or not she's she's
still got PTSD from when her city was sacked.
Yeah, which she should get over that. But yeah, if you're gonna be a Witcher, you got to put all your emotions away. No, but she yes, I mean, I don't even know if she's gonna become a Witcher. I like to think that she would be. I don't see why she couldn't. And that's been a fun theme throughout, is it seems like some people don't want her to be, just because not because they have other things in mind for her, but it doesn't seem like the normal route, I guess. I don't know. It's not even that Triss the
sorceress that's with them right now. Yeah, Triss.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like she necessarily wants her to be a Witcher, but it doesn't seem like she is going to stop anything. She's obviously doesn't seem like she's going to stop. It just seems like she's trying to influence Ciri kind of to make her. I don't even know if she's influencing her to make her own decisions or to make decisions that she's kind of incepted into her. I don't see Triss as being evil or even an antagonistic character. At least intentionally, I don't see her being antagonistic. I see her because she kind of has mixed feelings for Geralt, and she obviously is not obviously, but she is friends with Yennefer, and she even says that she cares more about her relationship with Yennefer than with Geralt. So, I mean, and then she I feel like she can't do everything that they need her to do, and as far as with Ciri. So I think that Yennefer is going to get involved. I feel like she finds her way into every book because she's the big. She was the big point in The Last Wish. He kind of bound their fates together. Not kind of. He did bind their fates together. So I feel like she's going to keep being a recurring character.
Yeah,
and I would like to think that she and Geralt, because they're bound by fate, that they would die together. So if they're not together, they can't die. But if they are together, then it's kind of risky.
Right, yeah.
But I don't even know if they're bound by fate, because I don't really know what The Last Wish could have been. It left it open-ended, and I don't know enough about the story to speculate. And I don't want to do too deep of a dive and Google what was The Last Wish, because then
right.
I feel like I'll just get not spoilers, but I feel like I'll get info that I shouldn't have yet.
Yeah,
because I'm not in the mix of the story as far. But I don't know. I think that's going to be my thing. Thinking back to that Last Wish, what did he say that is binding them together? Because we know that they're bound together by fate, but so I guess I'm waiting for Yennefer to come in this book. I'm waiting for her to come. I'm waiting for her to kind of help Ciri deal with some of the things that I feel like she's going to have to help, because
which is definitely. We've already seen her, so she's going to pop up with Dandelion.
Yeah.
So how quickly everybody meets up? Does everybody meet up, or just a couple of them run into each other here and there? Asymmetrically, but it'll definitely happen. At some point.
Is Dandelion? Is he's a human, right?
Yeah.
And humans just live normal human lifespan.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So this is all. He's the real main character, and this all encompasses during his lifespan, because we don't get any stories without him.
Yeah, I suppose so.
I'm kidding, but we do get a lot of stories with him, so it's fun to think okay, well, maybe this all happens within a 70-year period, and we're just not as
he and Geralt being great friends and having spent a lot of time traveling together.
I love that he's just Geralt's my best friend the bard that just tells crazy stories.
Dandelion,
come
over here. That's my impression of the narrator saying that line. I had to listen to some of this to try and truck through all the reading in the last couple of minutes, so I was listening to it on Audible, and the narration is very good. I would recommend it.
I really like it. Yeah, I think
there were times that I caught myself thinking oh, but I could be reading this right now. But the narration is very good. And if that was if that's your preferred method of intaking a story, then I would say that this narration has no real issues.
Yeah, the only thing that I saw that was just an inconsistency was he says Dandelion, and then in all the other in one book he calls him Dandelion, and in the other ones he calls him Dandelion, which
that's weird.
It's a little weird when you look at
the amount that I listened to, I never heard him say it that way.
Yeah.
So I guess all of the Sword of Destiny, I never heard him say it that way. And then I didn't, in the parts that I listened to it in Blood of Elves, I hadn't heard him say dandelion at all. I got through the dandelion chapter before.
He says dandelion in Sword of Destiny, but dandelion he says in
somewhere in
the other ones, in Last Wish and the Blood of Elves. But we only meet dandelion in like that one section.
It's just the first chapter.
So,
yeah.
Didn't you read that one already?
I read that. I didn't listen to the audio for that part.
That makes sense.
I didn't start listening until the second half of the second chapter.
Yeah.
When I was in a mad dash to catch up on my way home. But Dandelion's great. I think that Dandelion's my favorite character.
He is a good character.
For what of all the characters that I know. There's a dwarf that is recurring in the games, at least, that I really like as well.
I like the dwarves too. I don't know how long they live, but it's a long time. I don't know if it's like Lord of the Rings rules.
That one dwarf that speaks up during the first chapter when Dandelion's doing his recitals makes it seem as if he's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, because he talks about when the first kings of men came over the waters. So
I was here when we first met humans. God, that's weird. It's like, oh man, I can't even think of a comparison. And like unless you were like a native like American and then you saw Columbus and then you were still here. Yeah. You're like, I was here back in 1770. Wait, 1492. I got my dates messed up. Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of as like a comparison, and that's like what, 600 years almost. So
if it was, what was it, 1492?
Yeah, so
that's from 1500 to now is like you said, just over 600 years. That's a really long time.
Yeah, I can't when you get that old too. I obviously never met anybody that old, but it's hard to fathom that like you would even be normal at all. Like I feel like if I was that old, I would look at humans as like, oh, that's just my little pet that I have to deal with until 40, 50 years later, and then it's dead. But I'll still be here.
Right.
Like I know that's
and that's oftentimes why there's such dissonance between the different races in fantasy novels, is because in a very fundamental nature perspective, they are extremely different.
Yeah, you're a speck of dust.
You've either been around for thousands of years, or at most, typically humans in fantasy novels only live for like 80-ish years. Our standard lifespan. Maybe some of them. In some tellings, there's different races of men, and they might be able to live a little bit longer. Like in Lord of the Rings, the Numenorians can live for like upwards of like 300 years. I thought in some cases, but
that's not what Aragorn was, right?
Aragorn is not straight Numenorian, but he is a descendant of the
okay.
He's one of the direct line descendants of them.
I was gonna say, because he didn't live that long, I didn't think, but he lived like half that
I think he ends up dying like at 200 or something.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah. I thought he only because he was like 80 in the books. Different book. We'll get back to this one. Okay, so we have Ciri. We know who she is. She's the cool girl training. Triss says that she thinks that she's a
source.
Thank you. I was gonna be like a conduit. That's not the right word. A source. So, do you know what that means more than what they've explained in the book, or
no? It's not something that has been explored so far as I can remember or have experienced in the games.
Seems like a hard element for a game, like a random magic that she can't control.
But I mean, context clues and experience in other fantasy worlds doesn't make it very hard to understand that she's, and certainly given the explanation that was given in this book, she's a conduit, as it would be a way to describe it, where she's sort of like a gateway of unbridled power, and she doesn't have a way to control it because she's not harnessing the power like a sorcerer would. She just is attuned in a way that power can flow through her in an excessive way.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, I'd like to think that somebody else we know could channel that. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
So
that's all mechanics of the universe yet to be explored or revealed, because they don't, unless it's a bad storytelling, they don't, in a story you don't say, oh, this is a source, and now I'm going to tell you all the mechanical rules about it. We're going to have 16 pages of exposition. No, it's like the characters know what a source is.
And they know how to use them.
Yeah, and so they don't need to then remind each other how it all works for our benefit. Those things get revealed, in a more natural progression and good storytelling.
Right, and I do really like that element of this, because, like we were saying earlier, because the first one was a collection of short stories, I felt like I was able to just pick something up and move on because that's the way it is, and I don't think about it. Don't need all the rules. Just let's keep going. We'll figure it out as we go. Because Geralt knows all the rules and he'll tell us later, so
right.
It's a great point. And it's not, I guess, something that's been like lacking in recent stories that we've been reading, because I don't think that has been really a thing that we've had to deal with, just like poor, structure. Like you give them all the details at once and then you gotta like a throw up of info and now you gotta play with that.
Yeah.
It's just been like details as we go. And then at the end you get a throw up to make it all make sense, which that's happened a couple times. It's like, all right, I could have done, I didn't need the throw up, but, so what do you think about this book? Do you think that it has the potential to grow into like a favorite fantasy series of yours? I mean, I know you already like the book,
probably.
or the game.
I would be surprised if I got through the series and didn't, place it in a pretty high part of the list.
Yeah, I'm already really into it. So I could see that.
It's super enjoyable. I listened to the Dr. Sleep episode a little bit today just because I was like, oh man, how many chapters in Blood of Elves am I supposed to read again? And where I cut in, I made a mention about how, like, fantasy-wise, this is the exact aesthetic that I want in a fantasy novel. Things like Aragon are cool, but they're a little too pretty.
Yeah, and like you were saying, when we learn about magic, he gives you every detail about magic,
right.
and it explains all of it. And I mean, of course, he was 14 or whatever when he wrote the book, so
right. It makes a little bit more, it also makes a little bit more sense for Aragon to have the rules explained to him,
exactly,
because we meet him as a child,
and we're children. Yeah, that's a great point.
Whereas we're jumping in here in the Witcher series, we're jumping into the story of a bunch of adults that have already experienced and gone through their training,
and there just so happens to be a child,
right? Yeah. But aesthetically, this is a far more mature story,
yeah,
and not so like black and white, good, evil stuff, which is something that I appreciate more than, as fun as Harry Potter is, it's still like, well, that's the bad guy, this is the good guy, there's no in between.
Yeah, it's nice to not really be able to see it sometimes, just to not really know.
There's always the escape of the school, like, we go on the adventure in the Forbidden Forest, but we know we're going back to the Halloween feast afterwards,
Yeah.
And there's always like that in the back of your mind that, the next chapter is going to be fun and it's going to be okay. Whereas it's not that way in this universe. I
mean, even in Lost Causes of Bleak Creek, like we got a little bit of humanity from White House. No,
Whitewood.
Thank you, White House, White Castle. From Whitewood, and we got a little bit of his humanity. I know, and that kind of. It gave the story a little bit more flavor to me, and I really appreciated that. I know some people don't like that you feel sympathy for the guy that's supposed to be the bad guy, or that some people might not like that, but I really appreciated it as an element because
it makes him a character, and not just an obstacle.
It makes him human, it doesn't make him a monster, an obstacle, like you said, and it makes it. I mean, it's just easy. I don't know. It adds an element to the story, like you were saying, that just it's nice. It's more mature. It's more realistic. It allows for, like, I don't know. I've always liked that, I guess. And the first time I started noticing it was kind of in anime. I feel like they tried to make you sympathize a little bit with some of the other characters that maybe we're not following as like the hero, and then you kind of see where they're coming from, even though it's not necessarily like with Whitewood. We could see like you'd want to do anything to protect your daughter or to help your daughter, and so that could be his fuel, and it was, and so with this book, it'll I mean, it's sometimes it almost feels like Geralt isn't necessarily a good guy, even though we're always on his side, and he is the good guy. Like, I mean, I don't know. Right. I feel like he's got this code that maybe not all Witchers have because he made it up.
Yeah,
but
he does outright say as much.
Yeah,
he's like, there's like rules to being a Witcher, but nobody's ever compiled them. I just say I have a code because people like when you say you have a code, and it gets me out of awkward conversations.
Yeah, and Well, that
and then he also sort of does have his own set of rules. Like there's a bunch of monsters that he refuses to kill
because
and,
they're not a threat or they're not bad.
Right.
They're just they're just hanging out. Like it'd be like if he went out to go kill every bear that was out there because he had heard that a bear killed a human, or like because these lions are going in and messing up this village. Like now he's gonna go kill all the lions in the forest. Or tiger probably would have been a better example for a forest, but
right.
You know what I meant. Like just. He lets like nature and things run their course, and like he lets the world kind of balance itself. I don't know. It seems like he's very into the idea of balance, maybe that. And I didn't ever think of that until just now. I don't know if that's even right, because
not like that I've like picked up on from him. Yeah. There are other characters that have spoken to that sort of idea, and so the idea has been presented for sure. But at least for like why Geralt doesn't fight certain monsters is. So far has been directly given by him is just like this monster is intelligent and therefore can be reasoned with. Yeah. There's no need to kill it. Yeah. This monster is harmless. It might annoy people, but it's not hurting anybody. I'm not going to kill it.
This knight is trying to attack me, but I'm not allowed to kill him. Let me make him kill him.
Right. Yeah. But he won't hunt dragons.
Yes.
Because he finds them to be one, intelligent, so there's one reason, his intelligent rule, and I forget there's something else that he used as a descriptor for why he doesn't hunt dragons, but he has rules about which monsters he hunts, and they seem to follow predominantly along the lines of, is it intelligent, is it harmful?
I can't remember if he said because it was like a mythical beast. Not obviously dragons are mythical beasts, but like the golden dragon that they fought had never been.
Well, he didn't believe that golden dragons existed
and
until the one did.
That's why I thought that maybe like it had a step beyond being just like an intelligent animal, like, or an intelligent beast. Like it was a beast of legend, or I can't even think of the right word. I'm thinking of just like when Ash saw Ho-Oh flying through. It's a legendary. That was the word I was looking for.
In like episode 3 of the whole series,
right? That's what I was thinking. Is maybe the dragon was like a legendary Pokemon, and he was like, "Well, I can't kill that legendary Pokemon."
Well, he wouldn't have anyways because it was a dragon.
Exactly, but I feel like
it certainly
adds second tier. Like if it was a legendary kitty cat that was killing people, like maybe I don't know. That was a bad example, but I don't even know what I was trying to say. But just, I don't know, it felt maybe that was part of it too.
But he does mercilessly kill anything that is dangerous.
Right. Yeah, because he killed a horde of people that were going to massacre people until the...
Yeah, in the...
I keep referring to the last wish.
One? Yeah, it was...
Because there was a sorcerer in the town.
Yeah, there's some sorcerer and some chick that... had been wronged by the sorcerer came and blah, blah, blah. And she didn't really care about what happened to the town. They were going to slaughter the town. And that's how he gets one of his many nicknames, the Butcher of Blaviken. Yeah. Even though all he did was kill the bad guys.
But nobody knew that.
The villagers don't know anything.
Because they weren't doing anything
yet. They're just dumb people,
Yeah, they were sitting there in town, not even doing anything yet, about to do something. About to go down, and then he goes and slaughters them.
Yeah. So he does have like some sort of morality, much as he wants to tell people that he doesn't. So, which just goes back to like, he's constantly in this like kind of pathetic self-conflict of like, who am I? Am I actually these things that I say that I am versus what people say that I am? Or am I trying to make myself into these things that people say that I am? Whenever he talks to the elves, he is like, you should just integrate or you're going to die. And they're like, oh, is that what you did? Because you don't even do it very well. And it's just like, and so he's got this constant struggle of self going on that at times is pathetic, but I guess is realistic to some degree. I don't know. These things don't exist. So there's not really a good thing to compare it against, but
it is cool that he kind of stands firm with what he believes, whether people understand him or don't, because he didn't go around like having to fix his name.
He's already cast himself out, exactly. So he doesn't have to worry about what it means that he refuses to take this job or whatever.
And he doesn't care about his reputation. He's like, whatever, call me the you just said it.
The Butcher of Blaviken.
Thank you, Butcher.
Yeah.
I was like, I know it's an alliteration. Yeah, call me the Butcher of Blaviken. Like, I know that I did the right thing, and I'm just gonna, like, you can stone me, but I'm just gonna get out. Like, in that regard, it's kind of noble that he's sticking true to, like, his code, basically. Like, he knows what he's there to do, and he's doing that. He doesn't care what other people think. He's not doing it for anybody else. He's doing it for him. And I think he even said that in this book. How did he know that we were going to talk about it? Because he was saying that, like, even if everybody else, like, even if, like, all the monsters, like even if everything went, like, wayside and there was nobody left in the world, and it was just, like, him roaming around, he'd be roaming and taking care of monsters until the end of time. Like, that's what he's there to do. It
also is the only thing that he knows.
Right.
So he's sort of trapped into this fate that he's accepted. There's a lot of cyclical symbology in the individual characters, and certainly the majority of the ones that we follow are kind of like self-pitying. Yeah. At least, through parts of, like, the growth, or, their own self-growth and stuff like that. Yennefer at some point seems to get a grasp on her sterileness, or I can't think of the correct word to describe it in an adjective sense, but at some point she sort of, like, gets the grasp on it. It's like, well, that's what it is, and I can progress. Whereas Geralt is, like, continually, like, kind of self-pitying and caught in this, like, aerobic circle of fate, where, at some point we all kill ourselves, is sort of the way that he views a lot of things. But yeah, like he said, if I was the only person left in the world and all of mankind fell to ruin, I'd still just be killing monsters. I think that's more just, like, that's all he knows how to do.
That's all. Well, yeah, I guess that's, like, what I was. He's not doing. I made it out like he was trying to do it for nobles, being a noble person, or, like, for the greater good. But he's just doing it because that's all he knows, and he knows how to do it well. And whatever weird code he's still following it. So that's pretty noble, I guess. And but yeah, he's not doing it to make the world a better place, I guess. in
the presence of society, it can be seen as kind of noble, but in any other situation, it's just sad. He's a really tragic character, as intended to be his disposition.
He reminds me a lot of another character in another book, but it's like a big series going through, and it had a lot of same elements too, because it was like a new world that's like he's the expert character in this world, and we're just kind of riding along with him and learning. And Roland in the Gunslinger series has a lot of, like, elements that, honestly, I'm kind of imagining, like, a similar gruff, rugged guy for that character slot of Roland or Geralt, and even their names are similar: Roland of Gilead and Geralt of Rivia. It's like they're kind of similar, and it's I didn't even realize it until we were talking about it, on the show, but it's got some elements that feel kind of like the Dark Tower series, and that's maybe why I was kind of turning it into, like, it being sort of, I think I was saying it earlier, that it was kind of like I don't know, it's like his epic, but it's kind of sad, and, like, on this loop of, like, him just monster hunting, but, like, I don't know, I'm trying to make it all make sense, and it doesn't make sense yet, but yeah, I mean, I guess what I was saying earlier was he was, like, cursed to walk the world and do this thing, the only thing that he knows how to do. And I feel like that's kind of the same case with Roland. Roland's cursed to go after the Dark Tower because that's his one driving purpose. At all other cost, go to the Dark Tower. And that's kind of the same vibe.
That's definitely what Geralt believes.
Sorry, Geralt. Thank you.
At the very least, like, that's how he thinks it is.
Yes. Yeah. That's probably exactly why I got that vibe then. Because it's the same.
That's definitely the attitude that he gives me, is that he, feels like his life is just an inescapable circle. Even you didn't read all of Sword of Destiny, you didn't get around to some of the parts, but there's a part where he goes to this place and he meets with somebody, and the very symbolic, and he has a statement about, like, this is the Ouroboros eating its tail and the circle getting closer, so let's just end it now. because that's all it ever is. You know, he says something like to that effect. And so that's, you know, definitely his whole persona is just like, you know, it's all a cycle. This is all I can do. We are all trapped in our own fates.
Yeah.
But I don't believe in destiny.
But I don't believe in it.
Yeah. He's like, is simultaneously fighting everything while being resigned to everything that he perceives.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, he's kind of self-sorry and a lot of like really pathetic traits.
Yeah. I could honestly see the whole series ending with like him still having to like walk the earth and like kill monsters, like his friends die and like maybe he fixes everything, but he still has to like do this thing. Like he's not going to go just sit behind he's not just going to live a happy life after. He's going to always do this until a monster kills him. And you know, I guess that's maybe
so far as we know, a Witcher could potentially live forever.
Right. Yeah.
The fate of Witchers are to, you know, die in their work. And so
they all have.
Yeah,
no Witcher has died.
No one has died of old age up to this point. So,
yes. So I guess Geralt could be the first.
It is a possible fate. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I'm interested too to get some more like back history on the different races. You said earlier gnomes. I don't know if I've met a gnome yet, so I would like to. And
there were a couple in the first chapter.
Oh,
and the gathering that Dandelion had going on.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, they weren't like. It was pivotal to know that was a gnome. It just literally said like, and then there was this gnome, you know. But
in the squeaky voice of a gnome, she said, or whatever. How racist for me to just assume gnomes have squeaky voices. I thought there'd be a lot more racism. I mean, there is a lot of racism, but I thought that it'd be explicitly said, like, you racist. I don't know why. I just, for some reason, I thought that word would be thrown out. And I think it was thrown once.
There was one point during that same chapter where one of the elves there calls out one of the knights, human knights present.
That's what it was.
Oh, that's just your racism. Although even in that, it seemed like he was calling out the knight for being prejudiced against his own mankind and different like things. But you know, that could be several things for sure. But yeah, there is. The word racist literally happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a ton of racism in this series. The humans come in and take over the land and push the elves into the forests and push the dwarves into the mines. God. And the dwarves and humans get along a little bit better than the elves did because the elves were just a little too proud to integrate as quickly. There are some elves that integrate, as we see in Last Wish, you know, the ones that they're hanging out with at the town whenever the Dijon fights Yennefer and all that shit.
Nice.
But for the most part, like there's like, you know, residual elven kingdoms that are exclusively hidden in the forest and that, you know, are too proud to even trade with humans and stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah, if you don't integrate, you'll die. Maybe.
That's what Geralt keeps preaching to everybody.
Yeah. And he's the law of the land, as far as I know. So, I mean, not literally, but in our, you know, telling of this tale, he will be the determining factor in basically everything. So
he's the opinion that we are given to agree with,
right? Yeah, I'm so ready to agree with what he says. I mean, I can't think of much else that I'm trying to like hash out before next, you know, reading, because. I can't remember exactly where we left off, and I feel like it was Ciri just did something like Ciri's playing.
She was like on the wall, and they had just had like a bit of a fight, and she falls off the wall, and Geralt catches her.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
Winter is ending, spring is coming, and that was the time designated. They were going to take Ciri to the temple of Melitel that he spends part of. The Last Wish in going back and forth between, you know, the present and the past stories. The witches want to have her spend the spring there among people to get, you know, like socialization and to learn other things and you know, such and such. And so they end the chapter saying spring's coming, Triss, let's go ahead and just take this opportunity, you know, this sort of like pivot where we've had this confrontation about the training here at Kaer Morhen, and, you know, come through it, the argument or whatever. So this is an appropriate time for us to leave and take Ciri to, you know, her destination or temporary destination for the spring. And so, assumedly, we're either going to jump to Dandelion next chapter or be on the road to the Temple of Melitel.
I would kind of like to just be on the road to the Temple of Melitel, but that sounds boring when we could hop over to some action where I feel like Yennefer and Dandelion have some action going on.
Yeah, I wonder how much jumping in between there's going to be in this series, because the only time that we're ever not with Geralt is literally the first chapter of this book, which is just the first chapter of the saga.
Yeah.
So it would not be unfitting to spend that first chapter doing story setup in another situation, and then jumping to Geralt and never leaving him.
Right.
But if they do jump around a lot, then that's fine or whatever. Certainly, Yennefer is one of my favorite characters, and so it'll be annoying being away from her for an extended period of time until Geralt finally meets up with her again. But I think that I would also prefer just always being with Geralt.
Me too. Yeah, I would prefer to always be with Geralt. And it's not that I don't like Dandelion or Yennefer or or Ciri. I don't even know if we're gonna leave her or not. But I like all of them a lot. And the other Witchers are funny. Like they're, I think they're pretty cool. Like, I just don't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to hop off and go spend a chapter with them if we don't have to. Especially because I think the next section we're reading is only 2 chapters, so I don't want to have to.
Yeah,
have one of them be Yennefer and one of them be Roland, or
right.
Not Roland. Jeez, Geralt. I want double Geralt. Yeah, I'm in though. I'm hooked. I really like this series, and I know I'm gonna read the whole thing. Just a matter of time.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully, I don't know. I'm hoping that I can stick with it once we finish this book to the point where I'm certainly not going to have read the whole series by the time the Netflix show debuts, because that's in December 18 20th, days. Yeah. Unless it would be almost impossible because we've got 2 weeks of episodes for the first book, so I would then have to literally finish the other 4 books in like 3 days, which is literally possible, but would kill me.
I think that the series is going to be. It looked like it was mostly. I don't even
Looking
know.
at the cast of characters, it seems like it's going to have, at the very least, frequent references to what happens in the books.
I want to believe that it's just going to be the first book for some reason, though. Like I want them to kind of milk it, and I want them to be able to milk it, I guess is what I'm saying. Like I want them to put full, time into it. Maybe not go through the first 2 books like we did, but because it was a collection of short stories, it's not like you couldn't have an episode be a flashback,
right?
And it's a Netflix series they're releasing, so I'm assuming they're going to release it in a big chunk, like a big, I
don't think Netflix has ever done a show where they serialized it.
They've done a few, but I don't know if they do super well. They're like program viewing, like once a week. I think there was like Chelsea Lately or something. There was like a. Well, there was like
Chelsea
a night
Lately
show
is just a talk show, though.
Right, but that happened once a week, I think.
But that's not a story being. I'm saying like a story,
seen like a comedy show too. That was like a new series that they were trying to have, pick up. But it was a Netflix only, and it was. And then once it goes through and they're all on there, it's not like they're gonna re-serialize it. So,
right. Yeah.
So it's only a small window that it would be serialized anyway. But yeah, I assume that they're not gonna do that with this because it doesn't go over as well. But I think they were trying to do it at one point to like, I don't know, incentivize keeping your Netflix subscription and not just like getting it and crushing friends and then putting it up. So, but you're right. I haven't seen it super common. I think I've seen it once or twice, but nothing. I didn't watch those shows. So
the vast majority of their original series, certainly the first like 20 that they did, were all just dumped.
Yes, yeah, and yeah, everybody loved that. So I hope they do that with this one, because then it will give them the freedom to, at least more so, I would say, to have an entire episode dedicated to a flashback if they wanted. Where that's not necessarily what you have to do, but I think that when they dropped. Good Omens, and it was all of them.
But that was Amazon Prime.
I know. I was just thinking that it was good to drop all of that because at once, because there, like, I think episode 3 or 4 was just, it didn't really have much to do with the story. It was like all backstory about our main 2 guys that I can't remember their names, but it was showing them throughout time getting used to or like becoming friends, and then it kind of then wove it into current story that made it relevant. It was a good flashback episode, so I think that dumping it like that will give them some wiggle room to have like a whole episode where they can dedicate it to maybe the story in The Last Wish, where he makes the last wish, which is pretty important, binding him and Yennefer. But you wouldn't even have to dedicate a whole story to that. You could just flashback real quick to it. I think it'll be a great series, though. I can't wait. The one thing that I'm confused about is the sword on his back. Like, how do you get that off? I've never understood how you get a sword out of the sheath on your back. Just because I got short little arms, I don't think I could do it.
Yeah, it is definitely a mechanic that very frequently just gets glossed over in all media that it exists. They cut away from it, or they look at you at an angle where they can finagle something that's not realistic.
Yeah.
It's dumb. It's a dumb thing that happens all the time.
It's not where I would put a sword, but I'm not a witcher.
Looks like the series is going to be 8 episodes for starters.
Ooh.
So hopefully I do hope that they just drop it all at once. I think that if we decide to do episodes on it, that'll be beneficial for us, because then we can do, instead of having 8 episodes of it, which would take us 2 months of episodes to get through.
It would be the Witcher podcast.
Yeah, we could do 2 or 3 episodes at a time, and it'd be a little bit more agreeable. But yeah, if it's only going to be 8 episodes, then they're either covering the entire thing, or I think what's more likely is that they're just going to be doing a book at a time.
I would like that, especially because the success of other shows that have done similar.
Yeah, I think that it's got so much momentum behind it at this point that it would be strange, I think, for them to do anything short of the full thing.
Yeah, I was talking to some friends to Cole at work, and he when I brought up that we were reading the book from The Witcher, he was like, "Oh, and it's coming out on Netflix too. Like, do you know that?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I did actually." Like, but everybody knew it, and he was getting real excited. And he hadn't read the books, but he'd played the game, and we started talking about the game, and he even kind of sounded like he knew backstory of like the actors auditioning for it, because like the guy that's going to be the Witcher, I think that people were worried that he'd be typecast for that role. Basically, once you did it, like you're stuck doing that. And I think he said like, "Okay, that's fine. I'll be the Witcher forever. Like, this can be my last role, but I'm doing it." I don't know if that's true, but that's what I was told. So. Yeah. I like to believe it's true, and that the actor that's the Witcher is super dedicated, and that's all he wants to do.
Right.
Of course, he's already been Superman. So.
Yeah. I don't see how you would be the Witcher and then be typecast, unless it was your first role. Like, it's not like it's not a wholly original like idea of a character,
right?
Yeah.
And the people that you'd think would be typecast have gotten out of it. Like Daniel Radcliffe, I don't even really. I mean, of course, I think Harry Potter, but I don't think of him as solely Harry Potter. I mean, I've seen him in a ton of other things, and I never am thrown out of it because it's Daniel Radcliffe. Like even well, of course, this doesn't do well for me. Tom something. The guy that does Malfoy. So see, I don't even know his name, but but see, he's been in a few things, and I don't think of him as Malfoy either. In Emma Watson, I don't really think, like, Rupert Grint is in a new show, and I mean all of them really. They're just, it's been probably 10 plus years since they did all that, so that could be also why I don't see them necessarily as being stuck as typecast, and they were kids when they did it, but. It is interesting when that is another element of something that you got to think of. Like, do I want to be cast as just like the Witcher type characters, or like only wizards, or only whatever,
Right. Yeah.
Like Pierce Brosnan was like typecast as like just being a James Bond type guy, and then I don't feel like he's been in many roles where he hasn't been kind of this suave.
Wasn't he the dad in the Lindsay Lohan Parent Trap?
Was that before or after?
I imagine after.
I never saw 007.
I'm not sure.
So I don't know either. Well, there you go. See, I'm wrong.
I could be wrong. I don't know.
Well, maybe he'll do The Witcher, and then he'll do a Lizzie McGuire movie or something.
Get a Pierce Brosnan Witcher? Is that what you're saying?
Can Pierce Brosnan be The Witcher? Refilm all of
Oh, he can be Vesemir, the old Witcher.
Oh, there you go.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm excited for this show.
Yeah, I am excited, but just because I don't have much other Witcher material to go. Like, I'm not as into it where I feel like I could be disappointed maybe.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm just like, I'm just anything. Give me anything.
Well, we were talking about it at work the other day for some reason, and one of my coworkers was like, that show has to be excellent to have my interest. And I was like, oh my God, you are such a fucking product of the internet. Like, you just sound like every message board that's ever existed. And that's just a brief commentary on stupid people that I work with.
I feel like I've been like almost lowering my bar just to enjoy things more.
I think
it's like I'm subconsciously
it's just like something
doing
like
it.
as like you get older, you realize that things can just be okay.
Yeah,
the things don't have to be awesome all the time,
and you can still enjoy something that's okay. You can enjoy it a lot.
Exactly, yeah. Right. If it's not excellent, I have no interest.
There's no room for it in my brain.
That guy
I
is
only
such
have
like a
enough room.
child of the internet. It's kind of disgusting, but
I only have room in my brain for excellent things.
Right, yeah.
It's like, ugh.
So stupid. Anyways,
yeah.
What we're reading next is just the next two chapters, chapters 4 and 5.
4 and 5.
It's about the same amount of reading, another like 100-ish pages. So 4 and 5, just read that, and then we'll do the last episode of 6 and 7, and then we'll be done with the Witcher series, as far as episodes on this show as books. But
yeah, I'm glad we did it. I'm into this series, and I don't regret committing to a 7-8 part book series. I don't regret it, and I'm gonna knock it out. And whoever gets the money for my Audible purchases, hopefully they go to the author as well. I feel like they still would. You don't lose.
Right. Yeah.
So I hope they all go to.
You certainly get some
places.
amount.
That's good, because man, it's not like he didn't spend forever on it, like 10 years, like a book a year. He
right.
wrote the shit out of this thing.
Well, even just between the 5th book in the saga and the the short story that came out later was 14-year difference. But
yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, you guys know how to find us. At ears_stamps on Instagram and Twitter. And then Gmail is dogearsandtimestamps@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. Tweet at us, Instagram us, email us, let us know. Rate and review. Tell your friends. And let us know what you think about The Witcher.
Mm-hmm.
Play the game.
Yeah, play all 3 games. That's about 800 hours of content.
Yeah, get back to us. Let us know how it is.
Right.
Because Will didn't even get through all 3 games.
No.
Got through the stories, but not the 800 hours
of
gameplay.
Too much, yeah. Those first 2 games are kind of antiquated mechanically, so it's really difficult. It's difficult to play old games, surprisingly.
Yeah, I agree. I know exactly what you're talking about. And I looked up that video you were talking about, like the 4-hour smushing of the story.
Just
and
like the cutscenes, basically.
I think that's all it is. It's just the
pretty
cutscenes
much, yeah. Anytime that something story-wise happens that was easily recordable, they just smash that all together.
And then it breaks out to a guy reading from his book. And this is the part that we play through in the game. So just kidding. Yeah. No, that would be the worst. But I probably will go listen to or watch those when I have 4 hours.
To watch. It is a long time. They're not short videos. But in any case, see y'all next week with the next 2 chapters. If we decide to cover the Netflix series, we'll of course let y'all know before that happens. This reading of this book will be done by the time that starts. So if we do decide to do it, we'll let y'all know on the 3rd episode.
Yes, definitely.
Or at least certainly by then. So
I mean, I know we'll both watch it, so you'll hear our opinions on
it.
Even
I'm
if
gonna
we don't
have to
cover
get a
it for the
Netflix
show.
subscription for it, which is fine.
Yeah.
I can pay for a month's worth of Netflix to watch the show.
You probably get a free month, right?
Probably. Or I think they do like an 11-day trial or something weird like that, like a dumb number.
Just under 2 weeks.
I feel like I keep getting emails about it. It's like, start your 11-day trial. I'm like, well,
11 days.
I don't know. But
I'm waiting for The Witcher, and then you get my 11 days.
Right. But anyways, I'm Will Hedrick.
I'm Jordan Schaffer.
This is Dog Ears and Timestamps.